Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Matt Sports Talk. And you'll notice that right in front of me looks extremely bright, and that's because the sun is reflecting inside my bedroom window. I sat my iPhone on top of one of my pillows, so that's why everything looks a little bit brighter. Let me see if I can adjust my camera real quick without my phone tipping over. Okay, yep, we should be good now. Okay, so now if you were, of course, yesterday I talked about, in my videos, I did some recapping a little bit of comparison, rather, to the Crossroads League projection of men's and women's basketball, and compared to what I had projected when I originally recorded my projection videos. I think it was like a month and a half, something like that. So, and I did upload both those videos yesterday, and in case you missed them, you can go onto my channel and click on playlists, and then scroll down to Matt's Sports Talk Season 2, 2025/2026, and click on that, and you can catch up to all of my Season 2 episodes that I have uploaded there so far, and I'm going to continue to upload them to that playlist for each and every video that I record. And in case if you're brand new to the channel, and in case you maybe have missed last season when I started doing these videos, you can catch back on everything that I recorded on Season 1. Just go to Matt Sports Talk Season 1 playlist, and everything will be right there for you. And so I did want, now, of course, if you've been with me over the last month or so, you'll know that typically I just stick to men's and women's Crossroads League basketball, but I have done a couple of videos so far over this fall season of Crossroads League women's volleyball, talking about some key matchup games and some big upsets. And last night we had yet another monster upset that I did want to talk about in this video, and that's why I'm recording these videos. And I think that at least during the remainder of the volleyball season, of course, we're only down to 6 more games left in the regular season. So if there's any humongous upsets, at any time during the last 6 games of the regular season, I'm going to be recording these videos to talk more about that. So make sure that you subscribe to my channel. And of course, my goal is to hit 500 subscribers by February 21st, which is the end of the regular season for men's and women's Crossroads League basketball. So if you're brand new to the channel, or maybe you've visited my channel for quite a while now, but you have not subscribed, please do so you are first notified whenever I upload new episodes. And I really, really appreciate all of the new subscribers that I've had. And again, I truly appreciate that. And please keep on subscribing. Please keep sharing these videos with your friends and your family as well. So without further ado, let's dive into last night. And now, last night there were 2 games in particular that I wanted to talk about, but just as a quick overview of some of the other games that did not have any upsets. You had Spring Arbor sweeping Goshen 3-0 in Goshen, Indiana last night. Really no surprise there. And then you also had the receiving vote, or actually you had receiving votes Marian University out of Indianapolis defeating Bethel, and that was by a 3-1 score in 4 sets. So the Marian Knights getting back to that 500 mark in conference, and they've had a really, really tough the conference is just so competitive this year, and so, I know the Knights have kind of struggled this year. They have a first-year head coach, Ryan Bowerman, and, he's done a really good job, but they're kind of a young team, so to speak, so, obviously, that might play into it a little bit, but still, they're back to that 500 mark in conference after officially sweeping Bethel on the season. So if it comes down to a tiebreaker, that would favor the Lady Knights holding the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Lady Pilots. And then some other games last night. You had, I believe those were actually the only two games that really weren't any upsets in terms of any upsets last night. Now, then you had number 12 Mount Vernon Nazarene at receiving votes Huntington, and for the Lady Cougars of MVNU, they swept Huntington 3-0. Mount Vernon, of course, that was a game that they really needed to bounce back in a big way after suffering that tough 5-set loss at Taylor this past Saturday. Of course, Taylor was ranked 21st of a time, Mount Vernon 13th. Mount Vernon in that game had a 2-1 set lead, but Trojans came back and took the last two sets. But Mount Vernon officially holds the tiebreaker over the Trojans due to total amount of points scored in all of the sets in both matchups this year, as well as the total amount of sets won. So obviously that's huge for MVNU as well. So Mount Vernon holds the tiebreaker over Taylor. They officially hold the head-to-head tiebreaker over Huntington because they swept them twice this year. And now in that game at Taylor, Mount Vernon had over 25 attack errors, and last night at Huntington they had I believe they only had, I think it was 9 or 10 on the game last night, so obviously a huge improvement. And Mount Vernon as a team hit over 250 last night, holding Huntington really below 100, and that was kind of something that we have not seen out of Lady Foresters this year, so something that they obviously will be improving on before their game coming up on Saturday. So Mount Vernon, though, as I mentioned, holding the tiebreaker over Taylor. They hold the tiebreaker now over Huntington via the head-to-head. And Mount Vernon also holds the tiebreaker over Bethel, and because even though they split with them this year in the regular season, Mount Vernon does hold that tiebreaker for total amount of set points in both matchups, as well as the total amount of sets won. So for Mount Vernon, they officially hold a tiebreaker to three of the teams that are below them and kind of chasing them for that number 2 spot. Of course, Mount Vernon officially in that sole number 2 spot in the Crossroads League standings, 3 games behind Indiana Wesleyan. And now this next game these last 2 games I really want to highlight were, first of all, newly ranked. Well, first I'll back up for just a second. Mount Vernon Nazarene, number 12 in the updated NAIA Top 25 poll. That is the highest ranking ever in program history for MVNU. So obviously a big congratulations to head coach Kendra Mosier and everything that she has done leading her team. Of course, her amazing assistant coaches, Molly Galashewski, as well as, I believe, Macy Zinzer, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. And so MVNU number 12, Indiana Wesleyan number 5 now in the country. They moved up 1 spot in the latest top 25 poll. And you had Marion drop out of the top 25. They're receiving votes. Huntington still receiving votes. Spring Arbor no longer ranked whatsoever, as they have just had an extremely tough time in conference. They started out 12-0, but actually I think it was 13-0 they started out when they upset Marion the first conference game of the regular season. And then after that, the Cougars of Spring Arbor have really struggled. That's the updated rankings. Now, the next game, now newly ranked, number 20, Taylor, traveled to Grace to take on the Lady Lancers last night. And Grace, in a huge, monumental upset, sweeping the Lady Trojans 3-0. Now, the first time these two teams met in Upland, it was Taylor with a 3-1 win, then a 3-0 reverse sweep last night for the Lancers, meaning the Lancers will hold that tiebreaker over the Trojans due to the total amount of sets won in both matchups. Again, I'm pretty sure the Lancers would hold it in terms of overall points scored. I would have to double check on that. But a huge win for the Lancers led by their head coach Katie Hill. And for the Lancers, Anna Elkin, 15 kills last night, and they held Ellie Fry of Taylor to only 8 kills on the whole entire game. That is the first time all year long that Ellie Fry has not had at least 10 kills in a game. So a huge congratulations to the Lady Lancers and their defensive efforts, holding really the best player, one of the best players in the whole entire Crossroads League, well under her season average. So a huge win for the Lancers. And now for the Lancers, that is three teams that they have upset this year that were ranked in the top 25. Of course, the first one was Spring Arbor. When they were ranked in the top 25, the Lancers upset them 3-2. And then the Lancers upset I believe it was number 16, Marion, 3-0. And then last night, upsetting the Trojans 3-0. Now, out of Grace's 3 top 25 upsets this year, 2 out of the 3 have been in straight sets, 3-0. And believe it or not, what's kind of really crazy about it is that out of those 3, all 3 of them so far, all 3 of the top 25 upsets that the Lancers have had, all 3 have been in Winona Lake on Grace's home floor. So obviously that's kind of a crazy stat to think about. And so, man, that was a huge win last night for Grace, and they're back to that 500 mark in conference at 6-6. Now, the last game I want to talk about is the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan. They've won, coming in, they have won over 50 consecutive Crossroads League games. They have not lost a conference matchup game since the 2022 season. The last 2 seasons, they have been a perfect 18-0 in conference. And believe it or not, now all season long, just for a little bit of to put things in perspective, all season long, the Lady Wildcats they've only lost 1 set this year in conference, and that was at Spring Arbor last month when they lost one of the sets. They come back to win that one 3-1. And the last time the last time this year in conference play, the Wildcats have lost more than 1 set was against Marion at home back in the end of September. And last night, the Wildcats, boy, they were in I'll just put it this way. They were, I'll say it like this. They played with true grit and determination in their comeback effort, and most of all, they had the Lord on their side as always, helping them and guiding them in that huge win last night. They were actually down 2-0 against University of St. Francis. Now, to put things in a little bit of perspective very quickly, St. Francis was the worst team in the conference, in last place in the standings, 0-11 in conference, riding a losing streak of over 15 games. And now the last time the Cougars of St. Francis beat the Wildcats, you have to go all the way back to 2018, which is just absolutely incredible that it has been that long since the Lady Cougars of USF have given Indiana Wesleyan a run for their money. And St. Francis last night went up 2-0 against the Wildcats. The Wildcats in the first 2 sets had 13 attack errors. Actually, it might have been, I'm pretty sure it was 13 or 14 attack errors in the first 2 sets alone, compared to only 6 for the Cougars. And then after that, the last 3 sets, the Cougars had 17 attack errors in the last 3 sets combined, compared to only, I believe, 7 or 8. Actually, I believe it was compared to only, I think, 9 or 10 roughly for the Wildcats. So, boy, that was quite a turn of events last night. And, of course, the only other time this year that the Wildcats have trailed 2-0 was I believe, the second or third game that they played at the very beginning of the season against Bellevue out of Nebraska, when the Bruins upset the Wildcats 3-0. That has been the only other time this year so far that IWU has been down 2-0, and the very first time this year that they have come back to win a reverse sweep after being down 2-0, defeating St. Francis in 5 sets last night, 3-2. So number 5 in the country escapes a huge monumental upset bid by USF last night. Now, for the Wildcats, in the third and fourth set, they hit over 350 in both of those sets compared to El Zippo or lower for the Cougars of USF. So obviously a huge turn of events there. And for the Wildcats, they had, Marin Sanchez, Marissa Mullins getting into double figures with kills, which is absolutely amazing. But boy, how about Ava Geroldsma put the whole entire team on her back, and she had led the team with 26 total kills last night. So man, you talk about somebody putting the whole team on your back and trying to lead your team to avoid a huge monumental upset. And Ava definitely rose to the task and was able to help her team last night. So a huge congratulations to the senior from Hudsonville, Michigan. And she also not just with having 26 kills last night, she also hit 200 blocks for her whole entire career. So that is a huge achievement for her, and a huge congratulations once again to her and head coach Candace Moats for just an unbelievable job. And of course, Coach Moats is in her 23rd year at IWU. And you look at, obviously, the coaching records really don't matter, so to speak, but you look at what she's been able to do, and she, and at least right now in conference, she's approaching 300 career conference wins compared to only 43, I believe, total conference losses. So obviously that is just absolutely amazing, all of the success that she has led her team to be. Well, not just that, but she's led the Wildcats to just some amazing seasons. And of course, last year winning the national title in a game where the Wildcats were down 8 points, and were able to come back and tie the fifth set, and then go on to win the league championship. And then, of course, the 2023 season, going a perfect 38-0. And winning every single game, which I think a lot of teams don't understand just how hard it is to have the amount of success that the Wildcats seem to be having year after year. And obviously, Coach Moats is not going to be around forever, and she might, who knows? I mean, she could retire in the next few years. We don't know. But man, what a job that she has done. And of course, I'm really excited to see them for the very first time in action, in person, next Wednesday night here in Mount Vernon, Ohio, when they take on MVNU. And that should be an amazing, amazing game. Two roughly, in terms of the updated top 25 teams, roughly, a huge battle for roughly, two teams ranked in the top 10, essentially. So, it is going to be quite a game next Wednesday night in Ariel Arena, that is for sure, and I plan on being there. It's going to be amazing, and obviously, the Wildcats swept the Cougars 3-0 at home last month. Who knows what's going to happen, here next Wednesday night, but man, it's going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward to supporting them in person, and that'll actually be the very first time that I will have attended an IWU women's volleyball game, so that is just absolutely amazing and something to really be excited about. And last night got the chance to attend my first IWU women's soccer game. It was phenomenal. 2-0 win for the Lady Wildcats off a penalty kick, and then a stellar goal that iced the game for the Lady Wildcats by Caitlin Vander Ark. And so obviously that was awesome. And Avery Sluss, a great job, saving all 3 shots that came her way. So man, it was a great night, and glad that I was able to be there, see a huge win, and I'm quite tired today because I didn't fall asleep until after midnight this morning, which typically doesn't happen for me. Typically, I'm not a night owl. I typically go to bed way early. Well, not way early, but roughly around that 8:30 p.m. mark. So I'm a little bit tired today, but I should be good tomorrow once I catch up on sleep. And obviously once we get into basketball season, I'm going to be staying up a lot later, and so. But no worries. I can do that, and being able to support our Wildcats for both men and women's basketball, because that'll be starting in the month. Super excited about that. So again, thanks so much for tuning into this video. I hope this was super helpful to you, and if it was, please either leave me a comment down below, or subscribe to my channel. Any one of those options helps me out greatly. I appreciate any feedback that you provide me. So thanks so much for tuning into this video this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, a blessed weekend, and God bless.